in my opinion, this is one of the most impressive. Aesthetically, this is one of the most impressive churches. In terms of holiness, of course, it's definitely stuff. So, all of our group? Okay. So this is a church. This place was purchased by Wilhelm II, the the German emperor who came here in 1898. In one context, usually we mention Wilhelm. Chariot.
Yes, he went through with the chariot.
They filled up the moat and created this ramp. So he came here. Why did he come here?
He was an ally with the Turkish.
He wanted to strengthen his relationship with the Turks. But what's the excuse for his arrival? Right, to dedicate the Church of the Redeemer, 31st of October, 1898. This is 31st of October. They're supposed to celebrate 125th anniversary, but of course, didn't have big celebration. So he came for that, but then he came as a Protestant, but he came as the Emperor of the Germans, so he came for everyone. And he purchased 3 more pieces of land to build institution for the Germans. Another Protestant place. Which one is the other Protestant place? Augusta Victoria, right on the top of Mount of Olives. And 2 Catholic places. This one and...
The Lutheran Church?
No, this is Lutheran, Catholic. Yeah, this is Lutheran. He purchased. I'm sure someone went to school. Yeah. Yes, of course you would know. There's Paulus House, which is a guest house just outside Bab el-Amoud, just outside Damascus Gate. And behind that today, you have also the Schmidt School. So the Schmidt School was moved there after 48, but originally it was a guest house. So these are 2 Catholic institutions. There's a German organization that took responsibility for these 2 buildings. It's called the German Association of the Holy Land. And they built a monastery here and invited Benedictine monks from Germany to serve in this place. The architect came from Germany, from Cologne, from the area where this institution sits, and his name was Renard, but this is not an architect you have to remember for the exam. You have to remember only one architect. Antonio Barluzzi. Okay? If you remember Antonio Barluzzi, I'm happy. If you don't remember Renard, I can forgive you. Renard was very much influenced by Romanesque churches from the Rhineland area, from Germany, where he comes from. So if you look at the building, it's very similar to other churches, like churches you can find in Europe, and especially in Germany, in that area, like in Cologne, in Köln. If you know St. Geraun church in Cologne is very similar, St. Geraun. And also the cathedral in Worms. I'm talking to people that I know have been to Germany, but I don't know if you've been to Cologne or to Worms. It's very similar to the cathedral church. But he also used a lot of elements, local elements. For example, look at the gate. You see there are 3 arches, one after the other? Typical Crusader, but it's not Crusader because Crusader would be pointed.
Pointed arch.
You see the nice little column? Nice little column similar to the Crusader style. Then we have the red and white color. Reminds us the Mamluk. So it's a mixture of style. It's a style that was typical to the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, which we called eclectic style, which means balagan. You do whatever you like. Inside, it's very Byzantine mixed with Western. It's very nice inside. I will show you. So they built the church. It's dedicated to the Dormition of Mary. So in Hebrew, some people you will hear saying that it's Dormition. From dormir, something that they don't understand, then Zion, like Mount Zion. It has nothing to do with Mount Zion. It's dormitio. It's in Latin or in French, dormition, to sleep.
The lying down.
And then they have the monastery here where they have German monks. Now, not all the monks are German, of course. And they also have a program for students who come to study theology here. And they have a nice cafeteria, which is one of the most important pieces of information you remember from this afternoon. Very nice, very good cafeteria. And we will visit the church in a second. I want to say something about the theology. I don't know how much you will have the opportunity to talk about it with the tourists, but somehow tour guides always ask me about it, and I don't know if they're going to ask you in the exam as well. So I'm just going to mention it. I hope you will manage to follow it. What happened to Mary at the end of her life? So when we talk about death, we use the terminology of sleeping, rest in sleep. Yeah? In Hebrew as well, Yanuach al mishkavo b'shalom, menuchat olamim. So when we talk about death, we use the terminology of sleeping. Even in Greek, We talk about koimesis. Koimesis comes the word sleeping, like coma. So the terminology of sleeping and dying is used both by everyone in every language. The question is what happened to Mary? So if you look at the text from the 4th century, she died like any other person. She was buried, but since she was such a special person because of who she was resurrected and was brought up to heaven by Jesus. So she's in heaven. In all the paintings of Jesus in heaven, you see Mary next to him. In all the painting when you see the Garden of Eden, you see Mary is there. She was taken to heaven by Jesus. So she's in heaven now, and her tomb is empty. But Catholics were challenged by this because they said, already in the Middle Ages, Mary couldn't have the original sin just like any other person. She was special. She couldn't be without the original sin because everyone has the original sin except for Jesus because he's incarnated God. But what happened with her? I mean, it doesn't make sense that she had the original sin just like anyone else. And they developed a theology in the Middle Ages that became a dogma. It became something that as a Catholic you're supposed to believe in. That Mary, when her mother was conceived, when she was conceived in her mother's womb, the sin was taken out from her. So from the moment she was conceived in her mother's womb, she didn't have a sin. It's called in English Immaculate Conception. بالعربي الحلال بلاد. This is
كده صالحة بالإنجليزي زي.
it's very Catholic. Immaculate Conception. Now, this is what you're supposed to believe. From the 19th century, even if you haven't believed in that until the 19th century, now it's a must. Now, and then in the 20th century, they added another dogma that she was assuming to heaven by Jesus. Now, if she didn't have the original sin, the outcome, which is not clearly said in the Catholic Church, but it's kind of an obvious outcome, if she didn't have the original sin, you cannot talk about her death. Because the death is result of the original sin. And therefore, you would talk about her end of her earthly life, sleep, and that's why you would use the word Dormition. But it's confusing because in the Orthodox Church, how do you call the 15th of August, which is actually 28th of August? The Feast of Dormition. We also talk about her sleep. Because we use the word sleeping also when you talk about death.
But we can say also transfer, انتقال.
Yeah, transfer, right. But in the Catholic Church, they would say that Mary, and that's a dogma you're supposed to follow, Mary didn't have the original sin, and therefore you can say that she didn't die, she just fell into sleep, and then she was assuming to heaven. So this is the difference between the Catholic and the Orthodox. The main thing is that the Catholic would talk about Mary without any sin, and Orthodox would not say that. Orthodox would more humanize Mary in that sense. It doesn't mean that they care less about Mary. Of course, in the Orthodox Church, the Theotokos is very, very, very important. Yes. Yeah. But the Catholic would say, well, when she was conceived, she didn't have, when her mother was conceived, she didn't have, they took out the sin from Mary. So that's something to mention. I don't think it's important to mention it at first. I don't think it's a big issue for most of the believers. They don't really know the difference. But in case you were asked, just that you would know. So the fact that they call it Dormition Abbey, it's not because the Catholic believe that Mary got to sleep and Orthodox don't. Because also Orthodox would use the same word to describe the death of Mary, koimesis, which means sleep, very deep sleep. Koimesis, a coma. So this is the theological difference. Now I think we're ready to enter the church, but before that I saw some hands with questions. Yes, this is the bell tower of the church. Each side has different numbers.